We've just finished our opening session at our 20th anniversary Directors College program, and the panel dealt with some of the most difficult issues associated with corporate strategy and the role of the board of directors in setting corporate strategy. We're very fortunate to have with us this morning Conor Kehoe, a senior partner at McKinsey, who's going to summarize some of the major observations from this morning's panel. Conor, as a practical matter, you've been observing board behavior at a wide variety of different corporations across many different industries and through many different geographies. What are some of the biggest mistakes you typically see corporate boards make in the area of strategy?
Well, the strategy mistakes public companies directors can make really center around, firstly, not understanding the company's strategy sufficiently well, and as a result sometimes importing Wall Street or the City of London's concerns into the boardroom rather than actually representing the strategy forcefully externally. Second mistake we heard about today on the panel was the institutional no. The ability of senior leaders in companies, including the board of directors, to find good reasons not to innovate. And indeed it is risky. We've shown, looking at data over 30 years, that a new allocation of resource, capex to a new activity or more capex to a smaller activity, while it's absolutely necessary for long-term returns, tends to depress returns for the first year or two. So the challenge there is the institutional no or status.
So as a practical matter, Conor, are you saying that corporate boards of directors have to be willing to take a short-term hit to the stock price in order to be able to make a long-term beneficial change for the corporation and also for the stockholders?
Short-term hit for a long-term gain is exactly what they have to do. The markets do catch up, but it only takes them about a year or 18 months. Nonetheless, it's an uncomfortable period.
As a practical matter, how should boards of directors prepare themselves in order to be knowledgeable about the strategic issues that they actually have to address in the boardroom?
To be a good contributor to strategy in a board, the vital start is a good induction. And I find that most large companies now are pretty good at introducing new non-executive directors to their company, but they're actually not very good at introducing them to their industry and the dynamics within that industry. Non-executive directors who've been part of a private equity due diligence process speak of how much more superior that is at introducing to an industry and its dynamics than the typical induction program in a public company. So I'd encourage all non-execs to take the induction program, but complement it with discussions with good analysts in the industry, people who understand the industry, who can talk to them about the dynamics of that industry, of course, assuming that industry is new to them.
Once people finally achieve the skills and the knowledge and the ability that they actually need in order to be able to be successful in the boardroom, procedurally, how can boards and CEOs go about the process of figuring out the optimal strategy for the corporation?
Well, my favorite activity for board members is, first of all, prior to the strategy discussion at all, is to have a discussion on the drivers of value in their industry with their management team. They need to understand those. They also need to understand and appreciate whether or not the CEO understands the drivers of value. So after the drivers of value discussion, it's time to have the strategy discussion. A good procedure I found there is to ask the management to present two really credible alternative paths forward for the company. So the board discussion doesn't just become, we like your strategy. It becomes, here's two alternatives we could credibly follow. Let's debate them. It becomes a real debate. And then the third procedural angle, which I find to be very valuable to both boards and indeed to management, is for boards to follow up systematically on whether resources have been allocated or reallocated in accordance with the agreed strategy. It can be hugely helpful to the CEO too, because remember, he or she faces a lot of internal pressure not to take resources away from Division Y to give it to Division Z. Having the board behind this process can provide him or her with great impetus and authority in doing that.
Conor, you've been absolutely terrific. Thank you so much for taking the time this morning to summarize our opening session.
Pleasure.